Hello, and thanks for tuning in tonight. Ladies and gentlemen, it is election night 2024. Right now, everyone in the United States and many around the world wait with excited anticipation to see who the next president of the United States will be. Tonight, we are joined by GG Bullion. He pours three nines fine silver, and he has an entertaining YouTube channel. The Silver Hermit is here as well. He is an economist and a sound money advocate hailing from Israel. Check out their X and YouTube links in the description. And please note, nothing that we discuss during this live stream is financial advice. Gentlemen, welcome. It's great to speak with both of you tonight. How are you guys doing?
Good evening, and how do you do?
I'm doing well. I'm tired, but I'm doing good.
Doing great. So tonight we're going to be looking at everything going on with the election. We'll be looking at some of the different swing states. We're also going to be talking about what this could mean for gold and silver. So I'm just going to start out letting everybody know I did vote for Trump, and I wanted to see if you guys would be comfortable sharing with the audience either who you're rooting for or who you voted for, and what made you prefer that candidate.
Okay, well, as the other American here, I'm really not a fan of any of the candidates running, but I guess what it comes down to, I'm hoping Harris does not win.
Gotcha. And I wonder because Trump did take Michigan in 2016,
Mhm.
um, which was great, and it is considered one of the important key states. Do you feel like a lot of people in Michigan are leaning more towards Trump right now, or did you get much of a vibe at all either way?
Well, yes and no. So I'm looking right now at a couple different sources. Uh, Let me see here. It's like not even half of the votes are counted. Um, but Wayne County's always going to go because that's, the city of Detroit. It's a big urban population that usually goes Democrat. Macomb County and Oakland County, large populations. I think it's going to be really close. I On the ground here, I feel like people I could see it still at this point going either way. I think it really depends on what the turnout in like literally two counties is going to be. And that's probably going to swing the state one way or the other. But I think people are a lot more, at least people that are not hyper partisan or like one issue voters are mainly focused on the vibe I get is like this inflation is insane. Basically they want to change in the economy.
Okay,
That's the
gotcha.
general vibe I get from like the average person that's not, like a hyper political partisan.
Okay, so it sounds like because conservatives being typically being more fiscally conservative, people might be leaning more right this time around than they were last time.
Yeah, could be. I think a lot of it, at least the sentiment that I've been kind of hearing and seeing, like, I've seen a lot more like Trump yard signs than I did in 2020, for example. I mean, that's pretty anecdotal. I'm not all over the state, but I think there is like I guess the conservative fiscal policy, but I think a lot of it is more, I'm trying to think of how to say this. What has been going on the past 4 years for like the average like lower middle class to like lower class working person has not been going well. I experience it myself. It's been really rough here, unless you make a good amount of money. So I think people just want something different. Like a change from what's been going on the past 4 years, and I think a lot that could potentially sway a lot of people's votes.
Interesting. Well, thanks for your insights on that. And Oren, how about you? Who are you
Yeah,
rooting
well,
for?
yeah, well, first of all, it's quite clear that I didn't vote in your election because I'm not a US citizen. And
Yes.
unlike certain illegal immigrants, I wouldn't even dream of it, even if I were in the US. But yes, of course, I'm rooting for Trump, and it's important for me to say, you know what? I'm just going to read you the last tweet I made about this topic. And just yesterday I wrote on Twitter, I'm not a big fan of Donald Trump. I think America could have found far better candidates for president. But Kamala Harris strikes me as a phony, vacuous, capricious, and domineering person. She is the antithesis of a good leader, especially during times of crisis and war. Electing her as president will be the ultimate act of silliness and greed, the kind that only a doomed society can make. America, please don't make that mistake. So I think I made my position quite clear that although Trump has his faults, I mean, like he's not a perfect person. Nobody imagines that he's a perfect leader, but at least he strikes me. He comes across as an authentic person, as a real person. Yeah, like him or hate him, I think he's wearing his heart on his sleeve. I think he's genuine. Whereas every time I look at Kamala Harris, I just see, this AI image. It's something, it's not real. It's not authentic. I'm just getting an act. And I'm pretty sure that she would make a horrible president. Like that within 3 months, the people who voted for her would already hate her. And of course, I don't think she would really be the president. I think that for a long time now, America is being managed by a committee of the higher ups in the Democratic Party, and we know that for sure because we know Biden is pretty much incapacitated right now. He's not really the president, so someone else is in charge, and you need to ask yourself who's that person or persons, and you need to assume that if Kamala Harris becomes president, they will continue to rule the country. That kind of strange, unknown, unelected committee, and so I think the choice is pretty clear. You need to choose a true leader, even though he has his faults.
That is very well put. Yeah, I
Yeah.
mean, she definitely comes across as being extremely fake, and I think that does make a lot of people uncomfortable, which makes sense. Um, he, of course, says some things that people don't see as being very presidential, like you said. He's not hiding his opinions on things, and sometimes that makes people uncomfortable, but it's way better than what you would get with a Kamala Harris.
hmm Yeah. I I think you said that the people that voted for Kamala Harris would hate her in 3 months. I think they hate her right now. They just hate Trump more. Um, I don't think I think there's very few people that legitimately really like Kamala Harris and think she's going to be a great president if she gets elected, which looking at the votes coming in, it looks like as of right now, I don't think so. But it's just, I don't know. It seems like everybody, most of the rhetoric that I hear, that is quote unquote pro Harris, is really just anti-Trump rhetoric. So I suppose people could argue that they're voting for the status quo, and if you look at certain exit polls, people that are not going through too much economic hardship and various other things in exit polling data that I was looking at earlier today, uh, voted for Harris because I guess they're doing all right, or some people are. Uh, I guess that's going to vary. I mean, there are people that are one issue voters, whether it's abortion rights, whether it's the border, but I think the average person is mainly concerned with the economy, what our economic policy is going to be, what our foreign policy is going to be in terms of taxation, tariffs, all of that stuff. I think that that's what's going to actually decide this election. And from what I'm seeing right now, looking at the votes, it looks like it's, if I had to bet, if I were a betting man, it looks like it's going to Trump right now.
I think that that is probably what we're going to see. We're probably going to see Trump take it based on what we're seeing right now. And I'll tell you, for me, um, it's something where I was thinking about it and I was like, do I want the candidate who, while we're on the cusp of World War III, has left the border wide open for anyone to potentially come across, including, foreign agents who might have ill intentions on the United States, um, and also would like to pay for these illegal immigrants to get sex changes with US tax dollars. Do I want that candidate or do I want the candidate who, was looking into building a wall across the entire southern border? If nothing else, is going to be highly interested in securing the border. Um, so that was kind of a tough one for me. I ended up deciding I'd go with Trump. The sex changes for illegal immigrants. Yeah, maybe. I was like, maybe that's a good use of my tax dollars. But after thinking about it for a while, I was like, that's probably not a great use for my tax dollars. Like the roads got potholes in them and we're, almost 36 trillion in debt. So, maybe that's kind of a waste of money to be doing that. Um, but I had to think about that one for quite a while before I came to my final conclusion. And then, there was this other issue. Where one of the candidates is threatening to attack gun rights within the first 100 days that
Mm.
she's in office. And I was like, do I want to see further gun restrictions within 100 days of this election ending? Probably not. I think I'm gonna uh, not be too interested in Kamala. Um, anyway, so for me, yeah, it was a really tough choice, but I ended up going for Trump. Um, so I wanted to ask you guys, a little about speculations about what might happen to the metals, depending on who wins. A lot of folks think that if Trump wins, the prices of the metals could move down, and that if Harris wins, the metals could move up. What do you guys think about that? How might gold and or silver react to a Trump win versus a Harris win? And also, do you think there might be like a knee-jerk reaction right away? And do you think it would last like all the way through the inauguration, or could it be shorter or longer lived than that?
Oren, you want to go first, and then I'll bounce off of you.
I I want to say, I remember 2016. I was watching the results coming in from the United States, and also watching the price of gold and silver. And just as a small reminder, in 2000 and late 2015, early 2016, we had a rally in the precious metals. And everybody thought that this was, the big breakout of metals due to, all the QE and the anticipated inflation. And it turned out to be just a counter trend rally. But the thing is that the price of gold spiked throughout the night, throughout election night, and then tumbled and continued to fall for like, I don't know, weeks. It was incredible to watch. It just collapsed. Of course, if you look at the chart right now, it looks like a small dip compared to the price of gold right now. But back then it was kind of shocking because everybody was kind of anticipating Trump to be this, wild card, this president, unexpected president, and that the stock market is going to fall, and that the price of gold is going to spike if he gets elected. And we saw the exact opposite. Now, in hindsight, I can understand why, because Trump, he run on tax cuts. And tax cuts, of course, were very good for corporations. So corporations really liked, or the stocks really liked him getting into office. And gold, I guess that gold rallied back then on fears of a recession, on fears of a Hillary Clinton presidency, which did not materialize. And perhaps there was some manipulation there also. I think the big banks are always there to exploit any event in order to push prices in the direction that they want to see them going. And I think that there was some manipulation there because the collapse was so severe at the time. And I was kind of asking myself whether we're going to see a replay of this scenario, if we're going to see a collapse in the metal if Trump gets elected. Now, right now, I'm not. The metals are pretty much flat. Like silver is down a bit, 1%. Gold is pretty much flat. The asset which seems to be liking a Trump victory is Bitcoin, which has again broken out. It's very interesting because, lately the price of Bitcoin has kind of broken out from the consolidation pattern, which it was in the past 8 months. And then in the past couple of days, it kind of fell back down. It fell below the line. I was talking about a false breakout, and now it has spiked again. It's again above the line. It has even set a
Where did
nominal
you have the
low.
line at? Sorry to interject.
The line was at around $69,000 per Bitcoin, and it fell below it for a while. Now, Bitcoin is kind of a wild asset. For if it was a stock or if it was gold, having a false breakout would almost immediately lead to some kind of a collapse, a correction, a pullback of some kind. It didn't happen with Bitcoin. It went down to I think 67 point something $1,000 per Bitcoin, and then it again took off. I'm guessing it has to do with the fact that Trump has been saying favorable things about Bitcoin. I'm guessing it's speculation, a lot of speculation out there. I want to point out that there is something interesting to note about Bitcoin in the past few months, few weeks, that the volume is rather low. Only now, right now, are we seeing some kind of an increase in the volume, not very serious. And usually when we do get a breakout, we want to see a spike in volume, which means that many people are participating. Right now, I don't see a serious spike in volume. Volume is still low. So when the volume is low, it is easier to manipulate the price, and it is less significant. Now, what I want to say in general regarding the precious metals and Trump is that the situation now is not the same as it was in 2016. The debt is much larger. Inflation has broken out. I don't think that Donald Trump, with the best of intentions, I don't think he can turn this economy around as easily as he perhaps could in 2016. Back then, tax cuts promoted growth. Uh, I don't think the same playbook is going to work today. I think the situation is different. And I think even Donald Trump will have difficulties turning this economy around.
That
Yeah,
makes a lot of sense.
mhm.
And yeah, Gigi, go ahead.
Oh yeah, I mean, I would certainly agree with that. I think at this point, especially with how things changed during COVID, that it's with all the stimulus, the COVID unemployment, the bailouts, if you want to call it that, all of that money, um, it's like the economy is kind of addicted to that. Um, it's going to be very difficult for the executive branch to turn that around. Um, Now, as far as yeah, I agree with that. As far as silver and gold prices, my thing is, I mean, I don't trust politicians very much. I think it will
No,
be different than 2016. So we'll see what actually happens. I think initially there could be in the short term, it could go either way. But I'm let's say Trump does win because that's kind of what it's looking like right now. But there's so many unknowns, like what will this administration actually look like? What will our trade policy be with China, for example? I mean, if we actually go like with it in like a trade war against China, uh, that could boost silver prices. That could do a lot of things. I'm very uncertain of the specifics of that. However, I do think that silver and gold will probably continue to keep increasing in price because I do see this recession being hard to turn around. We may have, GDP growth, but if that's not trickling down to the people, it's not really helping that much. So people are gonna wanna get that money out of the dollar. And I think that's gonna be a continual problem we will have, if that makes sense.
Yes. I
yeah,
want to share with you a theory,
okay.
a conspiracy theory, if I may.
All right. I like conspiracy theories.
Mhm.
Yeah, well, um, the idea is whether Trump was allowed to win because the other side, the Democrats, realized that we're headed towards some kind of crisis, some kind of a recession, and they preferred that it happens under Trump, so they can blame it for him, and then come back um, with, you know, after the people have suffered, with renewed strength, renewed political strength. Now that's an idea. I'm just putting it out there, and one of the reasons that I'm saying that is that Kamala Harris was kind of a weak candidate to begin
Mhm.
with, and they
Yes.
they
Right.
they knew that look, let's face it, she's almost illiterate. No, it's not the right word. She can't speak. Okay, she can't speak off the cuff. Okay, she's stupid. Okay, she's there. I said it. Okay, she's not a very intelligent person. She's not articulate. Okay, that's the word I was looking for. Like she has those wild cringy cackles. She starts laughing in this embarrassing way, and she's extremely unlikable. And like, what were they thinking? Like months back, when the whole Biden kerfuffle started, I was kind of thinking that they were going to install Gavin Newsom at the last moment, just stick him in there, as their candidate, is because as much as I don't like him, but the guy at least knows how to talk, and he's a very smooth politician. And as a former California governor, I think he had at least a good position to, to be installed and to take off as a new and younger candidate, and it didn't happen.
Mhm.
And one of the excuses was that, hey, the Biden Harris campaign received lots of donations. And if they, so long as they went with Harris, so they could still use those donations because she was on the ticket. And if they switch to another candidate, so according to election funding laws, they'll have to refund people those elections, those donations. In hindsight, that seems like a bit of an excuse. So I can, with my crazy mind, can see the scenario in which they picked Harris as the candidate because they knew they were going to forfeit this election because there were they just knew that we're headed towards this crisis, this financial crisis, and they rather have Trump take the fault for it. What do you think about that?
Well, she certainly is a terrible candidate. That's for sure. They had much better options where, I mean, I think I want to believe it's incompetence and they're not that crazy Machiavellian scheming. But it could be, it could come back to benefit them in 4 years. If things don't get seriously turned around, and I don't think this situation is going to get turned around in 4 years. But I guess because she, is the vice president, that's kind of their excuse. Okay, she was on the same ticket in the primary as Biden. Other than that, they could have chosen many other people. Um, it it honestly is kind of mind blowing that they picked her, knowing that she can't. She's not very charismatic. She's not. She's just a figure to for people that really hate Trump to vote for somebody to basically vote against Trump. That seems to be the whole plan behind this campaign. And it doesn't seem to be working out very well for them. I like I don't know what's worse. The If it's a conspiracy theory or if it's like a conspiracy or if it's just incompetence. I legitimately I don't know what would be what I feel would be worse.
Well, I agree with both of you guys. She's insanely unlikable. Um, and I'll share with you my conclusions on that in just a moment. But yeah, when she talks, it doesn't make sense. Half the time, and then there's a decent chunk of the Democrat crowd that'll still cheer for her anyway. And it's like, do any of you know what she just said? But did she just hex you? Like what's going on? Like she didn't even answer the question. It's totally insane. And,
Yeah.
I
and
want to share something with you.
Yeah.
I want to share a personal experience with you. Back when I was in the Israeli Air Force, and I was an officer in the Israeli Air Force. So after a few years in the field, I was transferred to another base, which was closer to to home, to the center. And never mind, I'm not going to get into the details of my personal service, but the thing is that at that base, I used to sit in in a conference room together with officers, with the high-ranking officers at that base, and most of the time I was there just just to listen, not as a speaker. But the thing is, it was very strange the way the people there they were talking in this exactly in the same manner. These word salads, like
Interesting.
throwing lots and lots of words which sound very impressive, but don't connect into a coherent sentence. And I recall that at the time, because I was still young and naive, I was in my early 20s, and I was under the impression that, I'm stupid. I don't understand what they're saying. They're probably saying all those very interesting, sophisticated things, and I don't understand. And it took me a while to realize that I wasn't stupid. They were not saying anything. They were just trying to make an impression by throwing around words. Now, there was this, it was fashionable back then for officers, especially officers who weren't academics, to go study business management. Um,
Okay.
During, while they were serving, and there were all sorts of crazy ideas, all sorts of crazy theoretical ideas from the world of business management. They were just, they stuffed in their minds, and they had, all sorts of terms, brainstorming, kaizen, and flowchart. All those terms coming from all those ideas coming from business management degrees that had no connection to everyday life in the Air Force, because I don't know, perhaps they belong in some factory in the United States or some, I don't know, law firm in Europe, but they had no connection with, real life in the Israeli Air Force. And so I ended up getting instructions that had no connection to reality. And I immediately identified, not immediately, it took me a while to identify that as a very, very bad culture at that base, in which there was this disconnect between the higher officers and, the actual people, the soldiers and the junior officers who needed to carry out
We need
the
to
work,
actually
to
get
do the
things done.
work. Yeah, to
Right.
get things done. And the thing is that at a certain point, I realized that the people, the soldiers, the junior officers, they simply started to disregard the orders they received from above because they didn't make any sense. So the higher ups, they were in their own spheres, imagining that what they're saying is taking place. Well, things were taken care of at the lower level by people who were technical, who were connected to the reality on the ground, and knew what needed to be done. And, up there in the conference room, they had this discussion, this academic discussion, which was completely disconnected from reality. And for me, it was kind of schizophrenic. And I was, I had a very difficult time wrapping my head around this situation. And, I was thinking that perhaps it's something which is unique to that specific base. And then I got out, and then I found out that this kind of insane environment exists everywhere nowadays. Everywhere. It's in my view, it's a form of corruption. And I started seeing it everywhere, and that's one of the reasons that I always wanted to be independent, not to be part of an organization, because I couldn't take that kind of bullshit. And for years I was, self-employed, and I had my own little firm, just because I didn't want to deal with that kind of insanity all the time, and getting instructions and orders from people above me which make no sense, and I don't even know how to interpret them. So if I bring it back to Kamala Harris, I think she's deep inside that culture of spewing all those words that don't connect into a coherent idea, because she sees other people doing it and getting away with it and doing very well, just, failing upwards, failing forward,
Right.
as we say in Israel, just just not saying or doing anything meaningful and yet getting promoted again and again and again. And now she was just about to get to that position in which it actually does matter if your words have meaning or not, because as the vice president she could still get away with it. They could still cover for her. It was Biden's responsibility, and there were plenty of people to cover up for her. And I think as president, perhaps she couldn't continue to do that, and perhaps the fact that she was shamed for those word salads throughout the campaign. Perhaps it means that we've reached the tipping point and word salads are going to get out of fashion, because it's going to be, become the mark of failure and not of success.
I hope that they get out of fashion. Man, that was getting exhausting, listening to the stuff that she would say. Um,
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, this is the thing with Biden right now. I mean, I sure he has some decisions to make. He's still there to some extent, but really, I mean, we have unelected bureaucrats running the country. That's what goes on. That's essentially what goes on the state level. I think that is what people are like really tired of. And in 2016, um, Trump's whole drain the swamp thing was very popular about, reducing bureaucracy, which, he says this time around he's gonna do. I wish I could do a good Trump impression. I wish I could do that. But I think that's a big thing is people are getting fed up with the bullshit. Like it really is I'm almost at like a loss for words because it seems so obvious to me, I suppose, that like where the leadership of this country is like fucking asleep at the wheel and it's a bunch of bureaucrats running the whole show. But the actual elected government is not actually doing much, which is not optimal in my opinion.
well, I think that you're right. And to kind of tie those two things together, I think basically what's going on is we got a bunch of people at the very top end who were doing exactly what you were describing in the Israeli military, saying a lot without saying anything. And then there's people who are running, the various agencies, whether it's the national parks or you name it, that are very much still grounded in reality. And they're just getting their day-to-day work done. So everything's still kind of clipping along. But yeah, a lot of the
Mhm.
people, you know, like what might be the equivalent of like junior officers or people like that in the Israeli military, they're keeping everything going and they're listening to what the higher ups are saying and they're like, that was crazy, well, I'm just going to keep doing my job. And so the ship's just still kind of cruising along, but everyone's looking at the captain like, has this person lost their mind? And yeah, hopefully this is a turn of the page for us.
Yeah, because it really with any large institution, I mean, especially if you're looking at the federal government of the United States of America, I mean, really, I mean, we all know this. What keeps this country going is like normal people doing their job, whether it's in the private sector mostly or in the public sector. And there's people that through nepotism or whatever means and like you said, where you said it's like, a ship and people are looking to a captain or whatever, and basically our captain is like had a stroke and that's it. That's where we're at right now.
Right.
So like yeah, and it's a very don't get me wrong, it's a very difficult thing to corral that large of a bureaucracy and that complex of a society and it's very difficult to do. I hope it can be done well and in a manner that that helps. But I think I don't know. I got a lot going through my head right now, but
Yeah.
I hope that the average American kind of gets this attitude because it seems like for the past little while we've almost been in like this doomer mindset. At least a lot of the people I know where it's like, oh, this sucks. Nothing's going to change in the government. It, you know, I don't know. I remain somewhat optimistic that we can hopefully change things around, but basically it's going to take people, and I can link this to what I always say with silver, like if everybody got if every stacker got three people stacking, it'd be like $100 spot silver within a week or something like that. The same thing applies here. Like if people started actually talking to their neighbors and stuff like that. It's very simple stuff. Like I feel like our social fabric, that's the word our social cohesion is like so fucked up right now. It's difficult to get anything actually accomplished in a positive way. And we're in like a societal decline because of that. And I could go into a deep rabbit hole on that, but I'll stop rambling for a little bit.
Well, in regards to the younger generation, especially the really young people, I feel like a lot of their doomer mentality is because the housing market in the US is broken right now.
Oh yeah.
Um, they of course did that 50 basis point rate cut, but a lot of people's are actually looking at rates that have gone up a little bit, which is pretty concerning. Now, something that could correct this housing situation is if there was more supply. Just like any market, supply and demand come into play with real estate. So we have a whole bunch of people in the country right now um, that came in recently and also came in illegally, and they are putting some pressure on the housing market, which could be helping to artificially keep the prices propped up. Now, when you think about this, a lot of folks, might say, "Oh, well, it'd be so hard to get all these people to move out." But what I honestly do believe is if the Trump administration simply just shuts off the benefits, if they just shut off the
Mhm.
benefits, a lot of these people will get themselves out of the country. They'll go back home because that's why they're staying here. That's why they're hanging out. And of course, if it comes to widespread deportation, this is going to help the housing market. And, if we do end up going into, a deep recession or something along those lines, a lot of times that's going to put downward pressure on the housing market. And so hopefully the housing market will start to get back under control throughout a lot of the country. We've already seen some pretty significant downturns, particularly in the Southeast, but we haven't seen it nationwide yet. Although we have seen some minimal declines almost everywhere compared to the peak. And so hopefully, especially for the younger generation, the housing market will get back on track. Well, right now it's looking like Trump is going to take it. And it wouldn't surprise me if he does that immediately after he wins, we might see a little downward pressure on the price of the metals. And I don't know how long that might last for, but I think a lot of times what people um, are thinking about when they move towards the metals is uncertainty when they're not sure what the
Mhm.
future holds and they get uncomfortable, especially if they're questioning the dollar strength, and they might consider moving into gold and silver. um Now I don't know how long it'll last. I think, like Orrin had pointed out earlier, these people are opportunistic, so they take advantage of situations. And so this would be a great time, although we're talking about banks in this case as opposed to governments, but this would be a great time for them to pull off a price smash because it would be somewhat expected. So if we close the week down, I'm not going to worry about it. Um, as we move towards the inauguration, I don't know what they might have in plan. If they're planning some widespread riots, that could cause some people to feel uncertain again.
Mhm.
Um, and if it's looking kind of unstable, coming up to inauguration day, we might see the prices start to move back up. But what I don't think is, in particular with the case of silver, there's going to be any way the market fundamentals are going to change enough for it to have any long-term impact. At least that's what I'm thinking.
Yeah,
Uh,
I guess to kind of I'd like to get you guys' perspective on this. What in the but I guess both of your opinions, whoever wants to go first, the rise in spot gold price since let's say the beginning of this year when it was or whatever roughly 2000, now it's 27.8 or 27.38 or whatever. um and then silver is up to 32. It hit up to 34 or something. At the beginning of the year it was 22, 23. What do you guys think is the main driving factors behind that throughout 2024 so far?
Yeah, well, I'll go first. I think the main driver for gold and silver will always remain inflation.
Okay, I
And
agree.
look, I think everything else is noise. And even if we do get like a pullback right now, although it's going to be unfortunate from a technical point of view, because just recently gold and silver each of them had important breakouts. So if we're going to get a pullback which will negate that breakout, it might mean, that's technical damage, which we're going to need to, it's going to send the metals correcting and consolidating again for a while, a few months, perhaps a year. But ultimately, I think inflation is not going away. And that's the main thing. I think
Mhm.
inflation is not going away. As much as I sympathize with Trump, when I look at his economic policies, they seem inflationary to me. I wouldn't say just as much as the Harris economic plan. There you have some true insanity, some true inflationary insanity. But even the Trump economic policies uh, are inflationary because if we look at Trump, he still has this mindset as though we need to grow the economy, we need to grow the pie. And the way to do it is to borrow a bunch of money and invest. And, there's going to be new job creation and people are going to have more money. So, um, everything is going to improve. And also, if GDP grows, then the debt is smaller in comparison. So debt to GDP drops. And he still has this mentality. Now, this used to work for a long, long while. I mean, like throughout Donald Trump's entire career, throughout his entire life, this is what worked. Just hit hit the gas, like try to make the economy work faster by borrowing, doubling down on the debt, borrowing more money, investing it, putting people to work so that you get more growth and then everything feels better. And I think he still has this mindset, but I think things have changed, as we were saying just earlier. Now we have inflation, and inflation really changes things. Because, okay, the way I put it, um, in 2020, the flow of new money was diverted. If previously we saw every dollar being printed, every new dollar being printed, diverted towards assets such as stocks, such as bonds, such as real estate, now we are seeing these new dollars being diverted towards commodities. And the switch was, hardly anyone noticed it, but it happened. It happened when people sat at home and the Federal Reserve printed a bunch of money. So the federal government could distribute stimmy checks to everyone, and dropping rates back to zero. And I think that was the moment back in 2020 when things snapped. And the moment the inflation genie is out of the bottle, it's extremely difficult to put it back in again, because because commodities are so undervalued, so every bit of liquidity which flows towards them has the potential to make a huge difference in terms of price. So if you try to use the old playbook of stimulating the economy, just like the Trump campaign is thinking, I think it's going to lead to more inflation. And it's going to force the Fed to slam the brakes again, if they can, if it's even possible.
Mhm.
I think we're going to see a lot more inflation, and I think we're going to see a slowdown in the economy. I think we're going to see the two happening simultaneously. And that is what we know as stagflation. It's both stagnation and inflation happening at the same time. And it pretty much binds the hands of the Federal Reserve and of the federal government, because they can't stimulate without making the inflation much worse. And they can't fight the inflation without making the recession far worse. So they're kind of trapped.
That's interesting, and yeah, that's pretty scary stuff. So thank you for sharing your thoughts on that.
And I'll
Um,
just point out that long term, a stagflationary environment is the best thing you could hope for if you're a precious metals investor. Of course, it's very bad for the population as a whole, but
Mhm.
at least as a precious metals investor, you get compensated for that stagflation by holding physical gold and silver.
Yeah, and I think I know Brian, you agree that inflation has been the main driver for this kind of bull run in especially gold that we've seen this year?
yeah, I mean, especially for gold, absolutely.
Hmm.
Um, but moving forward, I'm not sure if gold might take a longer time to recover, assuming we're looking at a Trump victory. I don't know how quickly we'll see things start to move up again. Um, but it is really important to consider what Oren was saying, because a lot of times our perception is that gold or silver are gaining value when it's actually just the purchasing power of the dollar losing value.
Hmm.
And so, we could see them going up, and we'll think, oh, this is wonderful. And then groceries keep getting more expensive. And we can just thank our lucky stars that we have stacks, protecting some of our wealth in the form of these tangible assets. And, even in good times, if they are doing their job right, well, the target inflation number is 2%. So pretty much best case scenario, you're looking at 2% inflation under good economic conditions. And under bad economic conditions, I don't even want to think about, how bad it might get. Um, so I don't know. Hopefully, we'll see some fiscal responsibility over the next few years, and things won't get too crazy. Um, but right now, with the national debt rapidly approaching $36 trillion, um, we're in bad shape. Um, I mean, what do you guys think? Let's just say next spring, next summer, once the public kind of comes out of the ether, so to speak, and realizes the debt is still climbing, and that this isn't stopping, even if Trump is in office. Do you think that there will be a renewed interest in gold at some point, even if there is a lack of interest, let's say over the next few weeks or few months?
Yes, well, I'm thinking that right now, under the impression of a Trump victory, all sorts of crazy things can happen, which we shouldn't give too much credence. We shouldn't look at them as trend setters. but as noise. For instance, I'm seeing Bitcoin spiking right now, and I'm seeing has anything in the fundamentals of Bitcoin changed? I don't think so. We're seeing futures in the stock market up, up very nicely. We're seeing the dollar index spiking. We're seeing rates, interest rates, the 10-year treasury yield. We've seen it spiking as well. Now it's retreating a bit. I mean, all those things are knee-jerk reactions, which people are just reacting to what they're hearing, to what they're seeing. But I'm not sure that this is going to continue. If I look at the fundamentals, if I look at the bigger picture, is that nothing really has changed. People think of Donald Trump as some kind of a magician. Oh, he's a business person. Oh, he knows how to manage the economy. If he gets back into the Oval Office, he's going to fix everything. And I'm thinking that this is kind of the way of people, especially Americans, to to look for the easy way out, because just the fact that Trump is in the White House, it doesn't make all the other problems disappear. I know it. I'm sorry if I'm kind of raining on everyone's parade right now, but if you think about it, the personality of the person in the White House is not enough in order to change such huge problems, such as the ballooning national debt, such as the fact that inflation has erupted, the fact that the US economy has many structural problems. It's it's uh, it's uh, it's leaning too heavily on consumption and not enough on production. Now, Donald Trump is going to try to change that through his tariff policy, but reconstructing the industrial base is something which takes time. And in the meanwhile, you need to deal with the fact that the debt is exploding, and that inflation is going to make it much harder to deal with that debt, because interest payments on that debt are skyrocketing. We're already above $1 trillion per year, only interest payments on the national debt. Now, this is only, in my view, it's only expected to rise, because as inflation becomes entrenched, people demand a higher rate of return on these bonds in order to loan money to the American government. So interest payments are going to stay. Right now, I think they're the third largest line item in the budget after Social Security and health. And currently, the United States is spending more on interest payments than on defense, which is mind-boggling, and it's only going to get worse. And I think there's going to be this, this debt spiral in which the United States tries to grow the economy, but it only exacerbates the debt. And as interest payments become larger, then they weigh very heavily on the budget. And if the federal government tries to cut down, that then immediately you're in a recession, because government spending is such a huge percentage of the GDP right now. So I think uh, slowly but surely, the U.S. economy has stepped into this trap, and only now, when inflation is has erupted, the meaning, the danger in this trap it's becoming evident. People suddenly see it in front of their own eyes. There were days, even 10 years ago, when I was talking about these very topics. I was warning against inflation, and it fell on deaf ears, because back then it didn't seem like Inflation was it was like a very distant, like a bad dream. It can't happen again like it did during the 70s. But it was there in the numbers. And if you took a good look at the numbers, you could see that it was coming. And that QE was like this dead end road. You can just go down this road. You can't come back. It was something to be avoided to begin with. Now I think America, the entire Western world, will need to pay for past mistakes.
Mhm. Yeah, this
And,
is.
and I'll just say that the fact, as much as I like Trump, like I really sympathize with him. I don't think he can just, make everything go away easily. There's going to be, we're approaching the time of consequences, the time of true pain, in which there's no easy way out.
Mhm.
Well, thank you for sharing your thoughts on that. And then before, just real quick before you do that, I just want to have a look at where we're at right now. Um, Trump is at 247. It's 270 electoral votes to win. Harris is at 210. And I just want to just look at what's going on with a couple of these states. Florida is 98% in with 50% Trump. He's definitely got that one in the bag. Georgia, interesting, 94% in. So this is one that people weren't too sure about. But it's 94% in. He's at 50.8% compared to Harris at 48.4. So it looks like he's going to take Georgia. That's looking pretty solid at this point. Um,
Yeah.
Arizona's only 51% in. It looks like he's less than 1 point ahead. Now, the interesting thing with Arizona is there's so much population in the Phoenix area. That's Maricopa County. That's really what carries Arizona is who wins Maricopa County. So hopefully they won't take a whole long time counting their ballots this year. We'll see what happens with that. I don't expect we're going to have a very solid result for them tonight. Looks like Trump's almost 3 points ahead in Nevada, with 75% in. Looks like he's probably going to bag Nevada. He's doing pretty well in Utah. 60%, 66% in Colorado. Um, Harris looks like she has a firm lead there. She's over 11% ahead, it's looking like. Um, Trump is surprisingly close to 50% in New Mexico, so good for him there. But it looks like Colorado and New Mexico are going to end up going to Harris based on what we're seeing right now. New Mexico's 90%, 92% in, so that one's pretty much in the bag for Harris. Um,
I,
Wisconsin's 86% in at 51.4% Trump. So that kind of surprises me and glad to see it. It looks like Trump has a pretty firm lead in Wisconsin, and he's probably going to take that state.
yeah, I'm trying to do the math in my head and remember how many electoral votes these states have, but
Oh, so
I
Wisconsin's 10.
I think if he wins Georgia and North Carolina, Pennsylvania, and these other states I'm thinking of in the back of my head, that should push him over 270, or Michigan or Wisconsin. I would have to get up a map or something on my end, but
Yeah,
and
that's no sweat. And thank you for pointing out North Carolina, because they carry 16 electoral votes. They are
mhm.
98% in. So North Carolina's almost done counting. They're up there with Florida, and Trump's at 51%. Harris is at 47.8, others at 1.2. Um, so it looks like he's got North Carolina in the bag. And that is a state that a lot of people were looking at. Now, a lot of folks say that Pennsylvania will end up determining this election.
Yeah, because
Pennsylvania is they're already 90% counted right now, according to this. Um, Trump's at 51.2%. So it looks like Trump's going to take it. Harris is at 47.8. It would be really surprising if they closed the gap. I don't know. I this is what I think with Harris is, just me being a conspiracy theorist this time around, I think that they thought they were going to pull off killing Trump, and then it didn't work, and then they tried it again and it didn't work, and they were like, oh man, we got to actually run Harris now. Like we didn't kill this dude. And so now they're paying the price for that. They probably don't have somebody ready to drop off 500,000 ballots in Pennsylvania this time around. It wouldn't surprise me if he bags it. It looks like he has a pretty firm lead considering they're at 90% in.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, he could lose Arizona, Nevada, and Harris could win Nevada, Arizona, New Mexico, Minnesota, Wisconsin, and Trump wins Michigan, Pennsylvania, wins with what, like 285? I think, yeah, if Harris won all of those, and that's with Harris winning Wisconsin, which it looks like is not going to happen. I think it's probably got like a 1% chance at this point that Harris is going to win. We'll see. I guess we got time, but sorry, I got kind of distracted with that map there for a second, trying to do the maths in my head.
No, that was great and a really good point because I mean, pretty much we're already looking at Trump has a solid 247. He just needs 270. So, if he gets it is looking very strong that he's going to get Wisconsin at this point. Michigan, he's at 52.4%. Harris is only at 45%. They're 62% in. So that could turn around
Mhm.
overnight. We'll see what happens. But it's looking like of these swing states, we got four of them left here, and they're all leaning more towards Trump. Um, I don't know. They're trying to, I don't know, play some game with Nebraska on this site.
How Nebraska does its electoral votes is them and Maine are not a winner take all system. I don't know exactly how they divvy it up. I can't remember. I think it's whoever wins the state as a whole gets a certain amount, but then there's also districts that so uh it's not a winner take all system in Nebraska.
Okay, but thank you for sharing that. Yeah, it looks like they probably gerrymandered Harrison area there for her to get
Mhm.
one of the sections of Nebraska. Trump looks like he's going to take one of them in Maine. So this is pretty interesting. It's looking very much like Trump is going to take it at this point. Um,
Yeah, if this plays out where the percentages don't move too much from what they are now, this is more support than I thought he was gonna get, I guess, just based on gut feeling. But I don't know. Now that I think about it, Harris is such a weak candidate. I mean, she really is. That I'm not surprised. Also, I've noticed looking at this that because I know there's some factional infighting with the Libertarian Party of the United States. And I've noticed that Chase Oliver, the Libertarian candidate, they normally get, well, Gary Johnson got like 3.7% in 2016 of the popular vote, something around that. They usually get around 1%, and they're getting like 0.5%. I think a faction of the Libertarian Party had endorsed Trump. There's some weird infighting there. But I've noticed it's just odd to see the Green Party getting more votes than the Libertarian Party, and that uh, sorry, that might have threw it for him in a couple states like Michigan, perhaps. A lot of people that normally would be voting for a third party are like, no, screw this, like screw Harris, like that's not going to happen. So I guess I'm voting Trump. I feel like that's a decent amount of the sentiment, and I've heard that sentiment quite a bit in this swing state I live in. So.
Gotcha. Well, and that makes sense because with some of these races, if you're looking at 1.5 to even just 2% of people not voting for Harris that might have otherwise, it could flip these states. But it
Mhm.
looks like right now, Trump is probably going to take Pennsylvania. I don't see Harris closing this gap with 90% of the votes in and Trump at 51.2 with Harris at 47.8. Gosh, it seems unlikely that she's going to close the gap in Wisconsin. 87% of the votes are in at this point. Trump's at 51.4. She's at 47.1. So those two are gone. That's 29 right there. So that would be it. If she takes that, I'm sorry, if Trump takes those two, then it's over. And then we also got Nevada with their six electoral, 75% in. Trump's at 50.9, Harris is at 47.5. So it's looking highly unlikely she could take that. Arizona's definitely a toss up at this point. They're only 51% in. Harris is at 49.1 and Trump is at 50%. So that's actually a really close race in Arizona. It'll be interesting to see what happens with that. And if they manage to get all their votes counted by tomorrow. Let's see what's happened
Yeah.
with Georgia here.
Real
Georgia
quick.
is 49% in. Big election problems in Georgia last time around. Looks like Trump has a pretty solid lead at 50.8%. They're 94% in. Harris is only at 48.8%. But that's enough that I don't know. I don't think that that's going to flip with the last 6% there.
Yeah, no, real quick in the chat, Two Brother Stacking he says, "Hi guys, go Trump. I'm in Maine. The North gets one and the South gets one. So Maine splits up their electoral votes too. I'm assuming the North gets one, that there's two districts, and I'm assuming the other two electoral votes are winner take all. I honestly that would be, this is just me talking now, but I would like to, that might be a good system to implement in other states. Might be a compromise for the people that really hate the electoral college, but uh anyway, I'm just interacting with people from the chat. Sorry to interrupt you.
Hey, that's great. Well, thank you for
I
sharing that. We do
I wanted
appreciate
to
it.
ask you guys whether you got the chance to watch Donald Trump on Joe Rogan.
I did.
Yeah, I watched the whole thing. And I also watched the episode with JD Vance.
Say I watched about half of that one. I uh I was looking forward to the Kamala Harris on Joe Rogan, but that, never ended up
No,
happening.
no chance of that happening.
I really wish that that would have happened. That would have
That
been
would have been
beautiful.
entertaining for sure.
And
Absolutely.
that would have been embarrassing, just embarrassing to watch because she would have imploded. I mean, she would need to make like an infinite amount of word salad to get through that one, like 3 hours
Yeah.
of word salad, and Joe would be staring at her, just stunned, with this
Hmm.
empty gaze, and not realizing what just dropped on him, and I don't know if he'd have like the if he would challenge her and try I don't understand what you just said. Could you please repeat that one? What the part about the cucumber or the part about the tomato, the radishes, which part of the salad would you like me to repeat? That that was so it was nice to see, but I wanted to say, like, first of all, about Trump on Joe Rogan. Like, okay, so he's a bit full of himself. Like everything is big. Everything is, yeah, I was wonderful at this, and this was very successful. And he's constantly, self-aggrandizing
Hmm.
himself. And like that's the character. That's him. Everything is wonderful with Trump, and everything is big and successful.
Hmm.
And it's just part of his character. But I just wanted to say that JD Vance, I'm sorry about that.
Hey,
Um,
no sweat.
he JD Vance came across as a very nice person, as a very, down to earth kind of person, the kind of person you can have a nice chat with.
Yeah.
And we need to take into, we need to remember that Trump is not a young man. And if for some reason JD Vance needs to step in and replace him, then perhaps for a change, we have like a decent person in the VP position as well. And that's a good thing.
Yeah, I think JD Vance being on Joe Rogan was definitely a boost because that's one of the things. There's been, two assassination attempts on Donald Trump within the past couple months that the media seemed to kind of sweep under the rug relatively quickly, which was, yeah, anyway. So that's pretty relevant because assuming Trump does get elected and survives to a second term, if somebody does, murder him, like somebody's tried to do twice so far, VP is kind of important. Where I don't think it was as big of a factor with Tim Walz and Harris. I don't think a Harris assassination was something people were seriously thinking about, but I could see Trump being actually assassinated. There's already been two attempts. I mean, they're going to beef his security up, but there's going to be especially there's a lot of angry people and there's a lot of politically polarized people. So uh, the VP spot's pretty. I think is more was more of a factor this year than it typically is. We normally don't have assassination attempts, you know, usually.
Well, right, and especially two in a row like that.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was really something else. So something came up here. I'm just going to share my screen real quick. There is another website that is already showing 270 for Trump. So I'm just sharing that
Oh,
here. So that's
um,
interesting. It looks like this site has called Pennsylvania at this point. Um, and so they're putting him at 270 total. Um, so that is a good sign. And let's see where we're at on the other one real quick.
yeah, I'm looking at a couple different ones. Uh, let's see here. Pennsylvania had 93% of the votes in, according to CNN, according to Axios, 90%. I mean, they're all saying different numbers, but
This site is showing Wisconsin 88% in at this point, with Trump at 51.4%. So it's looking like Trump is doing very well in Wisconsin. Unlikely Harris is going to come back from that. Michigan's at
yeah.
64% right now. Trump still has a solid lead there. Looks like about 6.5% lead.
Mhm. Yeah,
And
I it looks like at least what I'm seeing broken down on the county level, estimated votes counted in Wayne County, which is where Detroit is 32%. So that's probably going to be quite a bit of votes coming in the middle of the night. Macomb County, Trump is ahead by a good margin. And Oakland County, it's Kamala's ahead a little bit. So I think yeah, I don't know. I'm like focusing on my own state too much right now, I feel like, but I'm looking at the map. Um,
well, I
but
mean, Michigan is one of the swing states that everyone's paying attention to.
yeah, yeah. And I think, in my gut, earlier today, before any of the results were coming in, I was thinking it's probably going to Trump. Just or in like what you were talking about how it takes a long time to rebuild like an industrial base and all of that. I think that's what people are looking for at the end of the day. Like the average person um is uh, it's like an economic thing, but I think you're right. I don't think Trump's going to be able to just change what's been set in motion since 1913 that's leading us up to where we are now, with many other blunders along the way. And that it's, funnily enough, I suppose, it's one of the biggest criticisms I hear of Trump is that he's, much too authoritarian. But I think our institutions and bureaucracy, hold him down relatively well. Um, and he is very full of himself, but uh, you know,
You know,
he,
they keep saying that he's authoritarian, but if there was anyone who was being authoritarian in the past 4 years, it was the Democratic Party. They were
oh
cracking
yeah.
down on free speech. They were cracking down on gun ownership. They were cracking down on, basic civil liberties, and they have the goal to call Trump authoritarian. Like they're
Mm.
projecting that's what they're doing.
Yeah, and I think that's a big a big thing here with what we're seeing, at least with the current vote tallies in Michigan, Wisconsin, Pennsylvania, a lot of other states, like North Carolina, where people weren't exactly sure if Trump was going to get it or not. Now that the votes are coming in, I think the average person is just kind of sick of that projection where it's like, okay, stop taking my money and trying to take away my firearm rights and all of these things that the Democratic Party is pushing. And what has Kamala Harris really offered? It's just fear mongering that, oh, Trump, orange man bad, basically. It's just I don't know. It almost really does make me wonder if they did set her up, like the Democratic Party as a larger institution did set her up to fail so they can come back, let Trump do his thing for 4 years and do something else. I don't know.
I wanted to
Yeah.
ask you guys, what do you think about Trump as a wartime president? Because, we spoke about the economic sides of future years, but we also
Mm,
need to take into consideration the fact that we are probably gearing up towards some kind of a conflict on the international level. um, I think of Trump as a personality which projects more fortitude, more power, certainly more than Biden.
mm,
He's the kind of personality who can perhaps um, either bring peace or bring some kind of a de-escalation in the Ukraine war. But also, if he's forced to fight, I think I think his adversaries on the world stage are more likely to be fearful of a Trump presidency than a Harris presidency.
Well, I do believe that's correct. And I think what we will see if he gets in is he's probably going to start axing some of these people in the various branches. It wouldn't surprise me if we see the US military lose at least one of its joint chiefs. And we get someone who is more suitable for that role in there. And the people that he will appoint, I'm guessing he will work with advisors, and we'll get some more qualified people in the senior ranks of our various military branches, and it will make a difference. Um, I do believe that he will be more intimidating to foreign leaders. I also think that they will count their blessings that he is going to be more willing to negotiate. I think he would like to see things wrap up in Ukraine. I think that he would like to see about negotiating peace, in the Middle East theater as well. And it wouldn't surprise me if people are receptive to that. Um, any of the high-ranking officers who are overtly woke, who have showed up on the radar over the last few years, being glorified by the media, are probably going to get targeted by the Trump administration. Thankfully, it would be good to see him do a little house cleaning with our military. And if he does, once he's done, I think that the foreign countries will see that and go, oh, okay. so the guy in the dress isn't running things anymore. We got we have a hardened, intelligent veteran running this branch of the military now. That's not a good sign for us if we're thinking about going to war with the United States. And the reality is it won't be. There will be more capable people in these positions who are doing things like updating invasion plans. When's the last time we updated the invasion plan for Iran? Oh, the guy in the dress hadn't done it in the last 2 years. Okay, well, let's update that now and make sure we know exactly which places we're going to hit if this thing pops off. And we'll get some competent people in there. Um, and the thing is when the U.S. military is running well, when we attacked Iraq at that time, they had the fourth largest army on the planet, and it took us 21 days to take their capital. If the U.S. war machine is being ran properly, it is a seriously dangerous force for anyone on the planet to have to worry about contending with. And if you have appropriate people at the reins, I think it would be scary to our potential opponents who right now are looking at this circus act and they're like, whatever.
Yeah,
Um,
I think definitely if we compare Trump with either Biden or especially with Harris, like if I am Vladimir Putin or Xi Jinping or whomever, Harris is uh okay, gonna fund the Ukrainians, for example. Like we're gonna give them our old equipment and whatnot, but there it's like Trump brings like a wild card aspect to it where it's like, okay, what is he gonna do? I'm trying to find the right words for this, but it's almost that classic like a weird kind of classic Americana stuff where it's like you don't know what we're gonna do. Like back in the 1800s when we wiped the floor with the Barbary pirates, it's like almost that kind of feel where it's like anything can happen. I think right now, like I'll put it this way, I think if Trump were to have been in office, I don't know if Russia would have thought it was worth it to invade Ukraine. I don't know if that conflict would have escalated like that. Uh, I don't know. There's a lot of things that go on behind the scenes with foreign policy stuff. But I don't think really China and Russia and all these other countries that are our adversaries essentially are I feel like they for the most part know what to expect. Like, okay, don't attack American ships, don't attack us directly, and we'll stay away from you. Where if there's somebody a little more, for lack of a better term, a little fucking crazy in office, that could throw a mix into that situation. They might think a little harder about it, but I'm not sure. I think it would most likely be better, and I don't. As far as the war in Ukraine, which Russia's been having a very hard time with for quite a while. I don't see us actually giving up support for the Ukrainians. I don't see that happen. I don't see us because I've seen a lot of people say, "Oh, if Trump wins, we're going to pull out of NATO." Like, no, we're not. What? Like, what? I don't think. I just see so much fear mongering, and I don't think that the changes are going to be as radical as a lot of people
Yeah, I
think.
mean, pulling out of NATO would be pretty radical. I would love to see us do it. A couple of these NATO countries I'm pretty tired of. Now, he has publicly said that he wants to see the dying stop in Ukraine.
Mm.
And so who knows what will happen, but it does seem like he's leaning towards trying to find, a peaceful resolution to that conflict. And yeah, thank you very much for sharing your thoughts on that. You guys,
Forgive me for interjecting, but as we're speaking in the past few minutes, the price of gold has taken a you know a tumble.
Hmm.
It has fallen from 27.40 all the way down to $2,700,
Oh
and the price
yeah.
of silver has
Silver.
broken down as well. The
Yeah.
price of silver has fell from around 32.20 all the way down to 31.40 or so. And that's kind of sad because as far as silver is concerned, that's a breakdown from an important level. I was kind of hoping for the $32 level to hold,
Hmm.
and we're taking a beating there. Now, gold is in better condition. Gold, as far as I'm concerned, can fall all the way to 26.70 without breaking anything important from a technical point view. So gold has a bit more. It can fall a bit further without damaging anything. Silver has taken the beating right now. So our concern is though Trump winning will be bad for the precious metals. I think it's starting to materialize right
It
now.
yeah, it's already showing. That's a really impressive beating for silver to be taking down around 31.51 based on what I'm looking at.
Oh yeah, that just dropped right off. But I think really I think if silver falls, if gold falls in the near term, then it's cheaper for me to buy. So that's I don't mind that too much. I did want to say when I was going on my sleep deprived ramble about Ukraine and Trump and NATO, I did want to say because you talked about somebody had mentioned Trump kind of shaking things up with appointing different people. You know what I would, and this is not a joke, I would actually love to see this. Uh, White House Press Secretary Alex Jones. Think about it.
That would be amazing.
That I think for foreign relations, that would be it'd be hilarious, number one. Number two, I think it would actually help.
No,
I,
I don't think he's stable enough for the job. But I heard another
Exactly.
name being
Exactly.
floated.
Not stable.
Michael Malice. Michael Malice as a press secretary. Now that would be an epic. He's a master troll.
that would be a great one too. I would love to live in a reality where either one of them was the press secretary for the White House.
Yeah. Well,
I would love to see either one of those guys taking a hold of those positions. So,
yeah.
real quick,
Well,
I just I'm sharing the election map again. Not a whole lot of change at this point. Looks like Pennsylvania is still at 94% according to this. Michigan's ticked up a little bit to 67%. Wisconsin's at 88. Trump is still ahead in all three of those swing states. Arizona is moving at a snail's pace. They are only 51% counted at this point, and Nevada's 77%, and Trump still has a firm lead on that state. So it's looking like Trump is probably going to take Nevada, Wisconsin, Michigan's still kind of a toss up, and Pennsylvania. But with Pennsylvania, Wisconsin, and Nevada, that would give him 35 electoral votes, which would definitely land him the presidency. So that is something else. Um,
yeah.
well, you guys, I'm gonna start wrapping it up here pretty quick.
Okay.
Um, I just want to say to the viewers, thank you so much for joining us tonight. Please don't forget to hit the like button and consider subscribing to the channel. Links for GG Bullion and Oren Elbaz will be in the description for both their X and Twitter accounts. So please check them out. It was great speaking with both of you tonight. Um, I look forward to speaking with both of you in the future.
All right. Well, thank you for having me on. Hopefully I was articulate enough. I am kind of brain dead after today, but hopefully we can see that Alex Jones press secretary. That's
Yeah,
what I'm
that
hoping
that'd be
for.
great.
Yes, well, I'll say that thank you for having us on. It's a pleasure as always. I want to say on a more personal note, Me as an Israeli, of course, I want to see Trump in the White House because almost without any doubt, Trump is going to be better for Israel. Now, I personally, I don't want to see Israel being so reliant on U.S. aid all the time. I would like to see my country more independent. There are many people who oppose American aid to Israel, for instance. I would be willing to give that up if especially if America is not doing very well fiscally speaking. I think we should stand on our own two legs. But if there is something that Trump can give Israel is the moral support, is being, very beside us in the sense that he understands that we're fighting against terrorism, not just on behalf of, our own country, but also on behalf of the entire Western civilization. I think we're doing a good job defeating both Hamas in Gaza and Hezbollah in Lebanon, and with the understanding that they are both being manipulated, being operated by Iran, which is also an adversary of the United States. And I want to remind everyone that Iran treats Israel as the small devil, while America, they call them the large devil, the great devil. Okay, so if Israel is ever beaten, then probably the United States is going to be next. So I think we're doing the good fight also on behalf of the United States, and I'm pretty confident that Trump is going to give us better support, moral support, which is, in my view, even more important than military or financial support. So I want to end with a touch of optimism. I think from bringing in some confidence, some pride in Western culture back to the White House. I think that's a great thing. And even if financially Trump won't be able to fix everything, at least bringing some pride to the White House, back to the White House, that's a great thing in itself. And so I thank you for listening, for being with me tonight, and good night to everyone.
Yeah, thank you for
Yeah.
sharing those closing thoughts. I think that that's some really important stuff to consider. And yeah, thank you so much for being here, both of you. It's always great to speak with you. And I hope you guys have a great rest of your night. And I hope we all wake up to a Trump victory tomorrow morning.
And I just wanted to add real quick that for everybody who's listening that is American, like, hopefully the new administration that comes in will be helpful. We'll see how that goes. I'm always skeptical of that stuff, but it would be great if we could embrace like the stuff that makes Western civilization and the US good, and just try and help out your neighbor, the people around you. Just I don't know. I'm feeling very patriotic right now, and I feel like that's kind of what our civilization is kind of all about. So
Yeah, a better
I guess
sense of community. And I think,
yeah.
Oren, that was a good point that will show some pride in, our country. And I think that that will help. Well, thanks again, you guys. And I'll talk to you next time. Have a great night, everyone.